He was just 21, a son of Queens, a brother, a friend. Drafted from his home in New York, Corporal Edward Vincent Coffey was thrown into the jungles of Vietnam. On August 21, 1968, in the Ben Quy rubber plantation, his courage met the ultimate test. This is the story of a young man who gave everything and never came home. Edward Vincent Coffey was born on June 9, 1947, in Richmond Hill, Queens, New York. He grew up in a modest American neighborhood, where the streets echoed with the laughter of children, playing stickball and the scent of hot pretzels from street vendors. Edward was a boy full of energy and kindness. To his neighbors, he was polite. To his friends, he was loyal. And to his family, he was a treasure. The late 1950s and early 1960s were years of change in America. Rock and roll filled the air. The civil rights movement shook the conscience of the nation, and young men like Edward dreamed of futures brighter than their parents had known. He was a son of Queens, a young man whose life seemed full of possibility. Yet fate had written a different story. While many of his peers went to college or pursued careers, Edward's path would soon be shaped not by choice but by duty. For in 1968, the war in Vietnam was raging, and America needed soldiers. In the spring of 1968, a letter arrived that changed everything. The Selective Service called his name. At only 20 years old, Edward was drafted into the United States Army. On May 21, 1968, he officially entered service. Training transformed him. From a civilian boy, he became a soldier. The Army taught him discipline, endurance, and above all, brotherhood. His role was that of a light weapons infantryman, the very backbone of America's ground forces in Vietnam. It was not an easy path. Soldiers of his kind carried the weight of combat directly. Rifles in hand, boots in mud, lives on the line. And soon Edward found himself thousands of miles away from home, deep in the jungles of Vietnam. Edward was assigned to C Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division, a unit known as the Tropic Lightning. Their mission was relentless: patrol, engage, and survive in the unforgiving environment of Tay Ninh Province, South Vietnam. The days were long, humid, and filled with danger. The rubber plantations and thick jungles hid not only the enemy, but also traps and ambushes. Soldiers like Edward had to live with the constant tension of war. Every step could be their last. Letters home carried words of reassurance, but the reality was harsh. Edward and his brothers in arms walked through mud, sweat, and fear. Yet they carried on because that was their duty. On August 21, 1968, fate caught up with Edward. His unit was engaged in a fierce firefight in the Ben Quy rubber plantation, a notorious battleground in Tay Ninh Province. The battle was brutal. The air cracked with small arms fire, trees splintered under gunfire, and the jungle floor shook with explosions. Edward fought bravely, but in that chaos he was struck down by enemy fire. At just 21 years old, Edward's life ended on foreign soil. His brothers recovered his body, a solemn act of loyalty and respect. In that moment, a young man's dreams, hopes, and future were silenced. But his sacrifice spoke louder than words ever could. Edward Vincent Coffey's story did not end in the rubber plantations of Vietnam. His name lives on, carved forever into the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington. DC, Panel 47W, line 29. Among the more than 58,000 names, his is a reminder of youth, courage, and sacrifice. To his family, he is remembered as a beloved son and brother. To his friends, as a loyal companion. To his nation, as an American soldier who gave everything. When visitors trace their fingers over his name on the black granite wall, they touch not just cold stone, but the warmth of a life given in service. He stands as a reminder of the cost of freedom, the weight carried by the young, and the enduring legacy of sacrifice. Subscribe for more.